No, I mean from among us.
I was unquiet. Embarrassing, right? Okay. Since we lost my son Ariel Zal to suicide almost 9.5 years ago, my life has forever been changed and altered. And a woman who lost her son said, life after loss feels like a braid. There's the grief, and there's the joy, and there's the love. In many ways, that's exactly what Mitzpeh Ariel and the Gina Kilatit is. Amidst cement and bricks, there's this oasis of peace and tranquility, and flowers, thanks to Mati and Roni, lots of beautiful flowers and trees. But strewn throughout the Mitzpeh and the Gina Kilatit, there's also the grief and the loss. Some of it is bearable and lighter. The entrance of my father, Rivital, my mother, Shilamit, and then there's the unbearable tragedies of small child Roi, Zichron Levracha, and Barak and Ariel, Mitzpeh Ariel. So this mitzpeh is a braid for me every single time I come here. And today is a braid for me. Yes, there's a great sense of accomplishment. 8-month project is a book. But one of my friends said, what are you struggling with the word hashakal, a book launch? Because I said it's too celebratory. It's not the braid. When I think of the braid, I also think of the Havdalah candle. When you buy it, it's new, and those interwoven candles are straight up and clean and easy. And then when you start using it, lighting, the wax drips and there's stickiness and muck. And that's also how I relate to life after Ariel Murkavut. It's complicated. It's more like a Havdalah candle and not like a Shabbat candle, which is just straight and easy and light. So how do I cope with the braid and Havdalah candle and with the longing and loss, anger at myself, anger, disappointment with myself, anger at Ariel, the mental health system, the army, you name it, and cope with the struggle of maintaining joy and the love within the loss and the grief, and also coping with guilt. One would think my biggest coping mechanism was either scotch or biking. It's a fair assumption that it was really a picture of a bike and what it means for me, not the bike itself. We were in South Africa with dear friends Kim and Barry, obviously Devora, and not connected to the trip at all. We were just on the way home, and we passed through Soweto, and I told the driver, stop. I told the driver to stop. I need to take a picture of this. And I just felt it reflected, depicted of my uphill struggle, the heavy legs, the heavy lactic acid, and the heavy backpack. But it's uphill, but it's moving forward. It says ride through history. And I just felt that was a meaning for me that I can take with me. And I come home from South Africa, and I don't know why, but it changed my life. Another turning point was that I wrote about it. It was the first blog in Times of Israel. And something happened that didn't happen with even biking, the Buttons group, Don't Get Insulted, or the Friday group, Uphill, Downhill, or the Scotch. There was a Tusha Shemazor. It was a feeling of relief. I pushed the send button, the publish button, and it just was able to breathe better. It doesn't mean, as this woman talks about braid, there's always nothing counteracts. There's always the grief and the love and the loss. But it just made it easier. And I started to write, and I started to get anxious, and I wrote, and I had an angst, and I was frustrated, and I wrote, and each time I pushed send, I was just able to breathe. But so that version of riding through was self-preservation. It It was tipul atzmi muvhak. I'm not above saying it was very nice to get positive feedback on Facebook or anything else, but it wasn't meant to inspire anybody. It wasn't meant to help anybody. It was meant a coping mechanism, self-preservation, to cope with my braid and my sticky Havdalah candle. I refused to wallow in the sadness. I rode through up the hills with the sadness and despite the sadness. Another turning point happened when I took the training course at Bishvil Chaim, the Amutah that provides services, emotional services for people who've lost loved ones to suicide, and promotes suicide awareness and education. When I started realizing how much information there really was, how much we need to increase the awareness, increase the education, the understanding, and to decrease the stigma and the embarrassment and the silence, it started to really change the way I thought of riding through. Instead of riding through for selfish or self-care reasons, but riding through for others. Riding through to get the word out, increase the awareness that we need to do something about this terrible disease and the terrible loss of life. So I started to understand better, and this is not the 45-minute talk that we do with the soldiers and educators under the Diesta in the Mechina, but when you learn about quickly just what the issue of depression is and the significance if someone is defined as clinically depressed, the ramifications, their greater risk. I, as a father, a social worker, never asked the question in 10 years. Ariel, psychologist for 10 years, 4 psychiatrists. No one ever gave me a warning. They're greater at risk. We learned about the terrible connection between loneliness and depression. We learned about the importance of engaging in the community and not just making it a father, son, or a patient, psychologist, patient, but to involve the community. We learned about breaking down the worst, most destructive, awful myth that if you broach the subject of suicide, you'll put that in someone's head. Most people want to live. Ariel told me how much potential he felt he knew he had, but people end their lives because of suffering and pain, not because someone throws an idea at them. If the first insight was about signs of depression, the 5th insight was about the signs of people withdrawing from life and possible contemplating suicide. A lot of really easy things to identify for another talk. In the 6th takeaway, we talked about just the simple thing, but important thing of keeping dangerous objects away from people who are depressed. And when you learn these things, that's why I promise I'm not going to sing Yishai Ribo at all, but when he says, Lo b'shamayim hi, lo me'ever hayam, kol ma she'itgabarti lo lechinam. It is not in the heavens, it is not beyond the sea, and everything I've struggled with, my angst, my feeling of guilt, the loss, the anger, was not for naught, not in vain. So in the same way I decided not to wallow in my sadness, but to live life fully, I decided I'm not going to wallow in the grief. I'm not going to wallow in the guilt, but I'm going to own the guilt. I'm going to identify what I did wrong, what I didn't know, and try to bring that out into the world to try to increase the awareness and to decrease the stigma and the silence. I know it's possible, and I know it's really hard. Some people say to me, I'm giving you a warning, don't say it to me. People are determined or it's inevitable. I'm well aware that I could have done every 6 of these takeaways perfectly, and I probably maybe not could have saved Ariel, because depression is a terrible disease, and he suffered terribly. So this book is about awareness and education and resilience, because part of my resilience is talking. It is not a blueprint for the eradication of suicide. I know it's a terrible illness, אבל לא מוכן לוותר, because cancer is a terrible illness, car accidents is a terrible, and piguim, as we all live with. But no one just says it's inevitable and cancer is a terrible disease, let it go. I have so much statistics I won't share with you, but in the last decade, 150 to 250 billion dollars was poured into cancer research, which is wonderful. Car accidents is like half that. And mental health, which is this ripple effect and damages people, families, communities, has 5 to 10 billion. And that's because I think of the fear and the busha and the embarrassment and the stigma that goes along with suicide. So I am determined to ride through, not to be sad, but also to promote. It's a different type of riding through. Devorah's sleeping in Vancouver, but I think if I have 2 versions of ride through, a second bike might be in order. And I do believe that as hard it is, as murkav and complicated it is, and I love the fact that murkav, complicated, comes from the word rochev, to ride. It's a lot of complicated parts, but it's doable. And I feel that it's doable because just in 2 little incidences, at least 5 to 6 women have written to me privately, saying because of my encouragement to break down that myth and to have an open conversation about suicide without the fear of broaching the idea you're going to cause someone to take their lives. 5 or 6 women have written me privately saying we had the conversation with our son. It changed the whole dynamic of the relationship. It's more open. They said yes. We changed the way we talk to him. There is one family X in one city Y where the mother or father, doesn't matter, came to Israel, and the mother or father stayed with the person suffering son in the States, learning from my mistake of not having an open conversation with Ariel. So lo b'shamayim hi, I am definitely convinced that if we take responsibility and talk more and be educated more and learn more, we can reduce the terrible numbers of ending their lives. And as much as it triggers me to speak or to write, we can save that one person, and if one father like me doesn't have to say Kaddish over their son, lo b'chinam. That's why I talk, that's why I write, and that's what this book is about, Rochev Kadima. Scouts. Thank yous. This is the one thing we were taught. Try not to speak with PowerPoints, but thank yous I wrote. Give me 1 second. The bakers, Galit, Debbie, and Cheryl, and Ravital, and Chagit, and Nurit, and Kim. The whole college design, just spectacular, amazing. Mati, Vesasi, Hakim Watakol, Tודה רבה, מהלב. בשביל החיים, אני עובר לעברית, זה עמותה שינתה את החיים שלי. קודם כל המתנדבים ומתנדבות ביחד, אנחנו מתגבשים ועוזרים אחד לשני. כל הצוות, כולם יוצא מהכלל, איבדו מישהו, או ילד, או הורה, ולהגיד תודה לעופר והחגי שהם מייסדים של העמותה לפני 30 שנה. הילד שלהם התאבד בצבא ולא היה שום שירותים, לא בשביל החיים, לא סיוע אז. שגית, דבי, קטרין, יעל ובמיוחד גם ענבל גולן שהייתה המנחה של ההכשרה, שכל הזמן הגישה לי, מאיר, זה בסדר, לא להיבהל, אתה לא צריך יותר מצגת, תדבר מהלב, זה ייכנס ללב. תמשיך בדרך שלך. אז תודה בשביל החיים ובמיוחד ענבל. סטיימצקיס, חבל הזמן וידידיה תעביר את זה לסוזן, זה רעיון שלה. כל הכבוד. עשיתי פרסום עצמי באמזון ולא כל כך צלח, אז תקרא בעברית את הספר. ואז 2 תודות חשובות, משמעותיות, זה לדבורה ולידידיה. שניהם עזרו לי, now I can go back to English. Keep me grounded, they kept me grounded, they kept me focused, they kept me motivated. It was particularly challenging when a lot of things I wasn't going to share, and you did encourage me and said, you shouldn't share, it doesn't matter. Because if you go too much into one area of pain, you're going to lose your two central messages, educational pieces. So this is about suicide prevention, and it's about how people can cope resilience. So when I talk about the 30-hour siyut nightmare, you can talk to me after scotches. It's not in the book, and it's not for now. And that's what I mean when Yedidya and Devorah kept me focused on the real goal of this is its education. It's not like, this isn't a novel. It's also why it's shorter. It's full of education that hopefully can help people both to prevent and both to ride through on both levels with resilience and suicide prevention. So Rabah.
Mayor, can I ask you a question?